At the company holiday party, my manager slammed his glass down and yelled, "She's just a pretty face who can't handle real work." When I tried to defend myself, he mocked, "Ah, look, she thinks she's special." Everyone laughed while he imitated me crying, right in front of the CEO. I just smiled, nodded, and quietly handed in my 2-week notice. The twist? I was already finalizing a new job that would bury his department within a month. Let me take you back to a December night in Indianapolis that changed everything for me. I was 33, working as a project manager for a mid-size marketing tech company downtown. The kind of place that bragged about its culture in LinkedIn posts but couldn't hold a decent staff for more than a year. I'd been there a little over 16 months. Long enough to know who pulled the strings. Long enough to know which knives were already pointed at my back. Brad was my manager. The kind of man who still thought locker room talk was just how business got done. He'd been at the company for 7 years. Old guard. Untouchable. People laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. Especially when they weren't funny. He had a temper too. Small things set him off. A missed deadline. A client who asked too many questions. Or a woman who didn't laugh hard enough at his sarcasm. That year, the company went big for the holiday party. Rented out the entire top floor of the Conrad Hotel. White tablecloths, a jazz trio, top-shelf booze, and security guards in tuxedos standing by the elevators. The invite said formal, which meant everyone was out to impress someone. I wore a simple navy dress and low heels. Nothing flashy. My goal wasn't attention, it was survival. Just get through the party, say my polite hellos, and maybe sneak out before dessert. But Brad had other plans. He was already drunk when I got there. I saw the signs immediately, his voice louder than normal, his laugh just a little too forced, and the way he clung to a whiskey glass like it was a life preserver. I kept my distance, stayed close to a few coworkers I trusted, people who knew how to read a room. But then just before 9 p.m., Craig walked in, the CEO. He was tall, mid-50s, sharp suit but no real presence. He didn't run the company so much as he floated above it, checking in when it was convenient. Still, people noticed. Straightened up. Smoothed down dresses and fixed ties. Because in that moment Craig mattered. Brad saw him and came alive. Dragged me toward the circle forming around Craig, like I was some kind of show pony. And that's when the grenade dropped. Craig asked about the Henderson account. It had been a mess when I took it over. Their contract was slipping. Deliverables were all over the place and client communication had basically dried up. I stepped in, cleaned it up, and kept them from walking. It was the best work I'd done all year. So I started explaining. Not in a bragging way. Just straight facts. Here's what we did. Here's how we saved it. Here's what it means going forward. And right then, in the middle of my sentence, Brad slammed his whiskey glass on the table so hard it rattled the cutlery. "She's just a pretty face who can't handle real work," he shouted. Everyone froze. Then he smirked and looked around the group like he was expecting applause. "Ah, look, she thinks she's special." He puffed up his chest, raised his pitch, and started mimicking me, voice high and shaky, flapping his hands like a puppet. A few people chuckled. Others looked down. One woman whispered, "Jesus Christ," under her breath and walked away. But no one said a damn thing to stop him. Even Craig didn't blink. Just sipped his drink like he was watching TV. My face was burning. Not from shame. From rage. But I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't say a word. Instead, I reached into my purse, pulled out a folded envelope, and handed it directly to the HR director, who was standing nearby with a forced smile and a glass of wine. "My resignation," I said. Brad's smile twitched. "What the hell is this?" he asked. 2 weeks, I said. Effective immediately. And then I turned around and walked out. What no one knew was this. For the last 2 months, I'd been interviewing with a much larger tech firm in Chicago. A company that wasn't just a competitor, they were predators. They'd been quietly building a new department to take on the exact kind of services Brad's team provided. And I'd just accepted their offer as their new senior strategy director. Their CEO was a woman named Victoria Dobbins. Fierce. Brilliant. And ironically, Craig's former boss. She'd mentored him a decade ago, then got pushed out of her old firm under shady circumstances. Let's just say they hadn't spoken since. Victoria was hungry. She wanted to bury her old protégés one by one. My hiring was step one. Within a week of starting the new job, I was leading a full audit of current vendor contracts, including the marketing analytics tools used by nearly 24 partner firms. Brad's company was on that list, and I knew exactly where the cracks were. I knew which contracts were outdated, where the pricing was bloated, and where the performance didn't match the sales pitch. Because I'd written the reports. I'd seen the invoices. I'd cleaned up the messes Brad caused but never owned. I brought all of it to Victoria. We moved fast. Quietly reached out to clients, floated new numbers, new solutions, better terms. All under NDAs. All airtight. 3 weeks later, we pulled the trigger. Brad's department lost 4 clients in 6 days. Each one worth hundreds of thousands in quarterly revenue. Each one a nail in his coffin. But I wasn't done. Brad didn't know yet that I was behind it. Not at first. After I left the holiday party and walked into that cold Indianapolis night, I went straight home, poured a glass of wine, and sat in the dark with a quiet smile on my face. Because I knew something Brad didn't. The game had just started. At my new job, things moved quickly. Victoria didn't believe in meetings that should have been emails, or drawn-out strategies with no teeth. She was surgical. Every task she gave me had a reason. Every call I joined had a target. In our second week, she had me join a meeting with our legal and business development teams. We were going after every contract Brad's company held with our partners, and we weren't just pulling out. We were offering replacements. Cheaper. Faster. Smarter. Because I knew what Brad's team did well. I also knew where they cut corners. I'd seen the way he inflated numbers and slapped lipstick on broken campaigns. I'd been the one patching his failures with all-nighters and apology emails. He had no idea I'd taken all that knowledge with me. I watched the clients drop like dominoes. One called me after switching over. A woman named Julie, who ran an insurance platform out of Cincinnati. "You're with VTech now?" she asked, surprised. "No wonder your pitch hit all the right spots. It's like you knew what I was thinking." I laughed. I did. 2 weeks later, I got a text from Jenna, one of the quieter analysts at my old company. She'd been on Brad's team but stayed out of the drama. "Shit is hitting the fan," the text said. I called her. "Brad's having weekly calls with Craig," she said. "Clients are jumping ship and he can't figure out why. He keeps blaming sales. Then IT. Then me. He's freaking out." I almost felt bad for her. Jenna didn't deserve the mess he was dragging her into. But I kept quiet. I couldn't tip my hand yet. A few days later, I got an unexpected message. "LinkedIn." From Brad. All it said was, "You happy now?" I didn't reply. He messaged again the next day. "I know it's you. Everyone's talking." Then another one. "You're gonna regret this." I blocked him. I thought it was over. But then something weird happened. I started getting emails from unfamiliar addresses. Fake names. Obvious burner accounts. The tone was aggressive. Threatening. One just said, "Hope your new job crashes harder than you did." Another, "You'll never be more than a secretary in heels." I kept them. Sent them to Victoria. She raised one eyebrow and said, "We'll handle it." A week later, VTech's legal team issued a cease and desist letter. It was sent straight to Brad's company, with copies forwarded to Craig and HR. The emails stopped. But the silence didn't last. Because 2 days after that, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up. "Is this Claire?" a man's voice asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "It's Doug. From legal. Over at your old company." I stiffened. "Can I help you?" He cleared his throat. Sounded uncomfortable. "I wanted to give you a heads up. Off the record. Brad's trying to push for a lawsuit. Says you stole internal documents. IP, contracts, performance reports." I felt my stomach twist. Not from fear but from fury. "I took nothing," I said calmly. "Everything I shared was public knowledge. And anything under NDA was reviewed by our lawyers." "I believe you," Doug said. "That's why I'm calling." "He's scrambling. He knows he's done. But he's trying to drag you down with him." I hung up. Sat in silence. Brad wasn't just angry. He was desperate. This wasn't about ego anymore. It was about survival. And a desperate man is a dangerous thing. The next twist came from a direction I hadn't expected. Jenna again. She called me on a Sunday morning, voice shaking. I could hear wind in the background like she was walking fast. "Claire, you need to hear this," she said, breathless. "It's bad. I mean, really bad." I sat up in bed, heart thudding. "Tell me." "He's trying to pin a data breach on you." I stood up, clutching the phone. "What?" "Brad met with Craig Friday night. After hours. Locked door kind of meeting. Said you access client data after your notice. He's claiming he found activity on the server logs under your login credentials a week after you left." My mouth went dry. That's a lie. I didn't even have access after my last day. They shut down my account. I know. I saw the logs. He faked them. I paused. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. He used his admin override to generate a spoofed log entry under your user ID. I saw it in the back-end tracking system. He must have forgotten we have full audit history now. Craig approved it 6 months ago. Everything gets timestamped with machine IDs. My stomach flipped. Brad wasn't just desperate. He was willing to commit fraud. "Jenna," I said slowly, "this could bury him." "I know. That's why I'm calling you first. Because if this goes public, I don't want to be anywhere near it." I got off the phone and contacted Victoria immediately. She didn't blink. "Send everything Jenna gives you. All logs. Screenshots. Make sure it's clean. No metadata stripped." We built a report. Quiet, airtight, damning. Victoria handed it off to our legal and PR teams. The next 48 hours were chaos. A story leaked to a mid-size industry blog about a high-level manager falsifying logs to implicate a former employee. No names yet. No company name. But people inside our old firm knew. Then another article came out. This time with a screenshot from the logs. The file name? CL_Henderson_Cover_Ref Final. Brad had saved it under a folder with my initials. But the creation date showed something else entirely. Created January 11th. I'd been gone for 3 weeks by then. It exploded. The board opened an internal investigation. Craig was forced to place Brad on leave. And then, like icing on the disaster cake, one of the Henderson clients came forward and shared that Brad had been billing them for work that was never done. Backdated invoices. Reports copy-pasted from old campaigns. Jenna texted me the day after he was fired. Gone. No annoncement. Just gone. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was surprised, but because the man who once stood in front of a room full of people mocked me and said, "She thinks she's special," had been exposed, dismantled, and discarded without a sound. And I wasn't even finished. After Brad was fired, it should have felt like victory. But it didn't. Not right away. Because there was still damage to clean up, mine and others. And part of me was angry at myself too. For staying silent as long as I did. For putting up with the jokes, the dismissal, the way people laughed along just to survive. I'd let it slide. I'd taken the hits quietly for almost 2 years. And if I'm honest, I hadn't just played the game, I helped prop it up by not speaking sooner. So I made a decision. I gathered every email, Slack message, and project report I'd saved. Not just Brad's behavior toward me, but the way he treated the team, cutting bonuses, taking credit, lying to clients. Jenna helped. So did 2 others who came forward once they saw he was finally gone. I didn't send it to Craig. I sent it to the board. Every single member. Attached was a letter, short and sharp. You ignored it when it was whispered. You laughed when it was public. Now it's in writing. 2 weeks later, Craig resigned. But what came next surprised even me. The board made a public statement about rebuilding trust, about holding leadership accountable. Empty words, I thought. Then they named a new interim CEO. Jenna. She called me the next morning. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "But I'm going to do it right." I believed her. We stayed in touch. The company cleaned house quietly, professionally. They started offering leadership training, real HR accountability. Jenna even made space for returning employees who had left under Brad's management. And me? I stayed at VTech. I turned down a promotion to VP. Not because I didn't want it, but because I needed a break. I took 2 months off. Drove across the country. cleared my head. Because even when you win, revenge has a cost. You carry the stress, the anger, the weight of all the nights you kept your mouth shut. You replay the laughs, the humiliation, the way people looked at you like you were being too sensitive. But I don't regret it. Not the quiet smile I gave Brad when he mocked me. Not the envelope I handed HR. Not the silence I kept while I set everything in motion. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's methodical, cold, and absolutely final. Brad mocked me in front of 100 people. I buried his career in front of the entire industry. He thought I was just a pretty face. Turns out, I was the executioner.